Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for week 138 of Build Your Stash and Craft. This week we are going to make stamp rollers. I forgot to give you a list last week, and so I was trying to think, what do we have in our stash? And this was a suggestion that someone had made to me just recently, and I thought, well, we'll just go ahead and do that. You may have seen them before, but something I had kind of forgotten about. And it's just a fun thing to play with. They work great on your jelly plate. They work great on your papers. Now, the one thing I did want to say is I pulled out, these are the rollers that we made for our jelly plate. And when I pulled them out, I pulled out my jelly plate. And I need to tell you that you cannot store your jelly plate on the metal pan that we flipped it out onto. I thought putting parchment on there would make a difference. It does not. And so I will be going back to that video and putting a note right at the top of the description. You're going to need to store it. If you don't have a piece of heavy glass, and I'm talking like the 1/4 inch thick with the sanded edges, that's what I store my original one that I made on. It's just sitting on a piece of glass with the pan that I made it in sitting over top of it. That doesn't matter. But what happened was the pan rusted, it soaked up into the jelly plate, it turned all black. It was really quite gross. So you need to store your jelly plate on something glass or plastic, just a piece of plastic packaging. Or a plastic sheet over top of a piece of cardboard, even plastic wrap over top of cardboard, or parchment. Put some plastic wrap and then a piece of parchment, so that you don't get the wrinkles from the saran wrap on your jelly plate. So don't store your jelly plate on metal. If you're just watching this and going, oh, jelly plate, I'll go back and see that. If you make one, don't store it on the metal pan. That was something I did not know until just now. So, but what we're going to do is we are going to use the rollers that we made for our jelly plate, and I'm not going to, these are our paint rollers, so I'm going to keep my paint part for my paint part, but you can do it on here too, it doesn't matter. And what we're going to do is, this is just you can go back to the jelly plate video, DIY brayers, and or paint rollers, and we're just going to slide. And we made them tight so that they wouldn't move when we used them. And that's just with masking tape, so my edges are wanting to get caught on the masking tape, but we're just going to get that on there. Kind of twist it as we go and make sure we get all the masking tape tucked in, and stop squeezing the paper towel roll. There we go. And just slide that on there. We get to the other end, make sure that all the masking tape is tucked inside, and put that on there. Okay, so there's one, and then we have the one for our toilet paper rolls. So we've got a big one and a small one. You can make the mini size. If you only have a big one, you can just decorate just part of it if you want to. You can still use it. You don't have to do the whole thing. You also don't have to put paint on the whole thing. And then what you do is you just take your fun foam and you cut any shapes that you want to cut. You can just go ahead and you can just cut squares. And you can measure and draw these out with a pen and then cut on the lines. I have never been one much to worry about perfection, as far as, well, sometimes you need it. But here's some little stripes. But, to me, in something that I'm doing like this, I want it to have a little bit of individuality. I want it to look like it's mine. I don't need it to be perfectly straight. And so, you can make wavy lines. Just like that. And you can cut a heart. I don't think that piece is quite big enough to cut a heart. It's big enough to cut a circle. And if you think, oh, I hate cutting circles by hand because, I never get it to look like a circle. Well, to me, so long as it looks like a circle, that's good enough for me. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. But if you want it to be a little bit closer, just take this is a cap off of a hairspray, and then just push it right onto your fun foam, and it will make a dent, and then you can cut around it. Oh, and if you squish it, it makes an oval. What do you know? Cool. Never thought of that till I just squished it up there. But you can cut hearts, you can cut anything that you want to, and then all you're going to do is you're going to glue it on your roller. And what we're going to use, now you can use these with an ink pad, you can use them with paint, you can use them with whatever you want to. We're going to use them with paint today. I like that oval. Kind of looks like an egg. So you're just going to start out by doing that. Get a bunch of shapes cut, and then you're just going to use your tacky glue and glue them onto your roller. Now you can do each roller separately. Do one roller, all hearts. Do one roller, because all you need is this paper towel tube. You're going to throw it away anyways, so you can make as many different ones as you want to. You know, they stack nicely on top of each other in a shelf. You know, you just kind of stack them and they stack right up very nicely. So I need to get, there's some dry glue on the end of there. And then what I usually do, because, you know, this is round and it has to stick to it, so what I usually do is I put my glue on my hearts and then spread it out, or, you know, whatever you're putting on here, spread it out and then let it set for just a second, you know, while you're doing the rest of them, and then stick them on there. You don't have to hold them as long because the glue has gotten a little bit tackier, not quite as wet. And I do like tacky glue for this. You know, you don't need anything like a super glue or anything like that. The tacky glue holds nicely. You know, I would not use any kind of a stick glue because I just don't think it would hold as well. So tacky glue is a really good one for this. So I'm just spreading it out so that I get all the way out to the edges. I want to have glue all over the whole heart so that it sticks down. And just get it spread out. By the time I spread it out on all of them, I should be able to start with the first one and put it on. Like I said, you might have to hold it for a minute. I haven't made these in such a long time. They are very fun to make. And they're very fun to use. And they're great to use on your jelly plate too. Roll them across your jelly plate. That puts paint on your roller, so then you can roll your roller onto a piece of paper and then lift off the pattern from your jelly plate, and then you'll have the reverse from your jelly plate. That is really fun to do. That's what I always used to do with mine. You should have a wet paper towel to wipe your fingers off on. So this is where we started. And you can put them any way you want to. If you want them all to go in the same direction, you can put them so that they're all just kind of mixed up. I like to mix them up a little bit. For me, a lot of the mixing it up and that type of thing, I like the way that it looks on your paper. Also, then if I'm trying to get it perfectly straight, sometimes that's really hard to do. So if you just mix them up on purpose, I don't want to put that one next to that one, then you don't have to worry about, is it straight? Is it, you know, is this lined up perfectly with that one? So you just give those a press. We have one more here. We'll stick it right here, I guess. Let's see. And of course, even when you're doing it every which way, you know, sometimes you do have to decide where you want to have it. I'm going to move this one over because it just seems a little too close. And there. Okay. And then what you can do is you can just kind of roll it to kind of press it all down. And then you do have to give them just a little bit of time to dry before you actually put your paint on them. So what we'll do is we'll get a few more things on here. Let me show you what I cut out. And I'm going to mix this one. I'm going to have my hearts here, and then I'm going to have something else and something else. I think I'll mix it with 3 different things. But there. See, that's got them on there pretty good. And then if they lift up as they're drying, you know, just kind of check it every so often. Go in and push them down and let it dry for a little bit before you use it. So then I got some squares here. And I've got a bunch of little lines. I have a bunch of wavy lines. I have some triangles. And again, everything is just hand cut. None of it, I didn't try to get any of it perfect because it really did not matter to me for it to be perfection. Now, I was going to do the squares, but I forgot about the triangles, and I really think that I would rather do some triangles now. So that's what I'm going to do next, and then maybe some circles. And I think that I will like that as a pattern. And like I said, you could put hearts all over the whole thing and then triangles in between and circles in between, so the whole thing is mixed up. You know, just mix and match. Do some that are just the way, you know, just one thing or another. You know, you'll come up with so many ideas as you're doing it. You know, you can do some with the little wavy line with the circle on top, and then that looks like balloons. And, you know, you can do one that way. If you have a heavy-duty punch, you could punch these out. If you have a die-cutting machine, you could die-cut your fun foam. And if you find that your paint is getting all over your roller, first off, you're a little heavy-handed, so don't push quite so hard on your roller when you're trying to get paint on your foam. But if your foam bits are far apart, a lot of times you are going to get paint on your roller, and if that's getting on your paper, when you roll it out on your paper, try and press lighter, and if it's still doing that, then you'll have to do 2 layers of foam to lift it up a little bit away from the cardboard. Because I always used to do 2 layers of foam, and then I started doing just 1 layer. I think I did 1, and I was in a hurry, and I just did 1 layer because I didn't. When you do 2 layers of foam, what I do is I take a whole sheet of foam and glue 2 sheets together, let them dry, and then cut them out. And that way they stick together better. But yeah, and I found out that when I was in a hurry that time, and I didn't have time to wait to glue 2 together and then put them on there, I did just 1, and it worked. So, but if I pushed really hard on it, then I got the paint on my paper. So, okay, so we'll just go through and just mix these up and put them on here. In any bit of randomness. Maybe move this one over a little bit and put this one right here. I'm just going to set it down because it's just easier to deal with if it's setting down. Just go around, press each one, make sure you get the edges, get the corners, get it to start grabbing. As we're rolling this around and doing this, it's making the hearts do better, you know, get stuck down even more because they're getting rolled at the same time. Okay, I'm going to put the circles on here. Then I'm going to do another one with the stripes on it, and maybe the squares too. And then I will be back and I'll show you how we're going to get the paint on it. Okay, I am back, and so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get some paint ready to use with our rollers. This is a piece of what we had left from a couple weeks ago when we made our stamp cleaner. I wound up with 2 pieces left that I can use as paint pads. And when you're going to put paint on your pad, the first thing you want to do is get it really wet and then squeeze it out so that it doesn't soak up as much paint, and it lets everything flow much better. And then you're just going to decide, you know, what you want to do with your paint. I think that I'm going to just put some like in stripes. Whoa, got a lot in that last bit there. Let me turn my yellow over so when I'm ready for it, it might be a little better. And then what you do is just use, this is a key card that I accidentally forgot to give back one time when we went and stayed at a hotel. So you're just going to work that in. And then I'm leaving space to put some yellow between. And it doesn't have to be, you know, perfect in any certain way or anything. And then you may think that this is a waste of paint, but there are lots of things that you can do with it when you're done. Having 2 paint pads is kind of nice when you have a roller that's this large, because with your smaller rollers, you can put a couple of colors, you know, one on one end, one on the other. But when you've got the large roller, you definitely have to have enough paint so that your roller is going to be able to pick up that paint. Excuse me. So I want to make it a little bit wider than it is. Go up to about there. And then when we're done with this, we could use it like if you're doing some journaling and you want to have some lined paper. A lot of times when I make a big one like this, I get my line stamp out, which I didn't pull out today, so I'm not going to do that. But you've seen the line stamp in both the Journaling on a Budget and the Build Your Stash series. And then I go ahead and I use my line stamp. I need just a little bit more of this middle one, and the edge of this other one just doesn't seem like it has very much paint on it. But then I stamp a bunch of paper with lines, with the colored lines, because I like that look. And then you can use what's on this to just press right onto a piece of paper and pick up the striped colors right directly onto your paper. And then I'm going to show you how you can use it to dye paper, like coffee dyeing and tea dyeing paper, except it's paint dyeing. And that is the last thing that I do with it when I'm ready to clean it. The one thing with these is you never ever clean them in your sink. You don't want to wash all this acrylic paint down your sink. You very possibly could clog up your sink. So you're going to want to rinse it in something else to wash it off, not your sink. So, and I just have a cheap little aluminum pan that I use for that. And then that's what I use to paint dye my paper, is that same pan. So there we go. We'll see how that is. I might as well do it right away. I think I need a little bit more yellow in a couple of spots here. And then if you do up a few of them at a time, then you can use, you can do different colors. You can mix different colors on top to make different colors. Like if you put red on there, and then you could put a little yellow on top to make it into orange and that type of thing. Get yourself some nice mixes going on. And all I did was, this is just a piece of cardboard. Just a piece of packing cardboard, and I just put some aluminum foil on it so that it wouldn't get wet. So I had a place to hold my paint stamp because the paint can go through. And then I'm going to you just ink up your, or shall we say paint up your roller. And if you kind of go back and forth a little bit, just a little bit, then you get a little bit of gradient color on some of your spots. And then we'll just put that there. Grab out a piece of paper and see what this looks like. And there we go. Oh, I really, really like that. I'm going to try and put a little bit down here at the bottom. I like that a lot. I like that pattern. I like the gradient of the colors. I think that one looks wonderful. And if you want to have two-sided paper, I'm just getting a little bit more paint on my roller. And this is a soft tablecloth, so I definitely am picking up some color from my roller. But I really actually I'm liking that too, because it doesn't leave me great big white spaces. So, but if you want to make sure your roller does not do this, first off, you need a solid surface. And then, because right now my paper is just squashing right into this when I roll across it. And then the other thing is you can put 2 layers of your foam on there. But that's really cool. And I like that being double-sided. And then you say, well, now I got a bunch of paint on that. What am I going to do? You can just go ahead and roll it off on other paper, and that will help clean it. You could also just use a wet paper towel and wipe across it. And you can, if you wanted to, you could get this one wet and then use that to kind of clean it off with. So, you know, there's lots of ways you can clean it. But, so yeah, I love how that turned out. And so then the little one, I striped it. And so I used a straight stripe, and then I used a squiggly stripe, and I did that all the way around until I got it as wide as I wanted it. So we'll just pick up some color on here and see what this one looks like. Well, that's straight as straight can be. That looks very cool too. Now I don't have anything out here to hold this off of my paper, and so I did wind up getting that down. So I might want to put another stripe there because that would hold it more evenly, and you know, make sure I don't get a lot of paint over there. But that actually looks pretty cool too. It looks kind of like, oops, looks kind of like waves here. So, and I wanted to, I rolled it all the way across the paper so that you could see that, you know, you can use this to go quite a long ways. And I'm going to turn it around now so that I get the opposite of this right next to it. And that looks cool. And then we'll see what we can get. Well, let's do it this way. Right there on the bottom. So there we go. And let's make it double-sided. It's kind of nice to have double-sided paper of your own, but I'm going to go this way now. I'm going to do one, and then flip it over and do a lighter one. I'll do it that way. And then flip it over and do a lighter one. There we go. I like it. So these are how the foam stamps work. They're really fun to play with, and they make really lovely papers. Like I said, you might want to, you know, maybe have a couple of pads out so that you can have different colors. And I'm going to just let those dry because once they dry, they're fine. I'm not really going to bother washing them off. But so this is what we wound up getting, and I think that they turned out pretty cool. And then I wanted to show you about the paint pad and painty paper. So I just have, and you can get these at the Dollar Tree. You know, I just have them here for when we have, you know, like larger meals with company. And then I use these because it's easier for cleanup. And but this one I will set in my art room. I won't use it for cooking. But so this is what I use. Oh, shoot, I forgot to show you what you can do. You could have left this right on the aluminum foil, right where it was, and taken a piece of paper and just pressed it on there, moved it over, pressed it on there. You can get a lot of papers that would have the blue and white. You can kind of move them back and forth to get that gradient look, to pull off the start of your paint. Once it gets to the point where it's not pulling off much paint anymore, then put it in the water to wash it. And that's telemarketer, so I'm not going to answer it. And then what you can do is, you know, like while you have it in there, see, look at all these really kind of pretty colors. Let me get, I really should have had a paper towel here to wipe my hands on. Let me get a piece of paper, and we're just going to put this right in there. Paper's just a little bit big. And I'm going to peel it up. And see, look at that. Isn't that cool? I like the way that looks. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish this piece of paper with that. Normally, I would cut my paper down to the size of my pan. So, or make sure that I had a pan, and you can get bigger pans than this at the Dollar Tree for $1. Have my pan big enough to fit a full-size sheet of paper is really what I usually do. Now, because it is so wet, it soaks through to the other side. So you don't really necessarily have to do the other side. And then just like any other painty paper, you have to have a place to set it. Because I have a plastic tablecloth here, I'm just going to toss it over to the side. Once you've done that a few times, and you've got it's all kind of mixed together, then what I do is I just use this water to wash my sponge. And just really try and get that, even though the water is now colored, you're still going to be able to get kind of the solids of the paint out of your sponge. And I'm just going to squeeze it out really, really tight. And then when I'm all done making my painty paper, then I throw this outside. I live in the country, and that is what I do with it. You can also pour it into some kitty litter, and the kitty litter will absorb it, and you can throw it in the garbage so that you're not dumping it down your sink. And then what I do with this water, I treat this just like tea dyeing water or coffee dyeing water. And I just go ahead and I just put my papers in. And then take them out and set them aside in some spot to dry. Sometimes I like to set them on top of each other so that they get the different looks. I'm going to move that one over because I liked that first one. I don't want to put this on top of it. But they'll get marks where one piece sat on another. Sorry for hitting the tripod. I'm kind of going between it because I didn't have the spot for the paper planned out real well. And you can leave it in there. If you leave it in there to soak, just like with the tea dyeing paper, you know, it will get darker. You can move it around and get some of that water off. Get different designs. I'm going to set that one on top of the other one. Excuse me. And then I'm going to do a few book pages. And like I said, I just treat this just like tea water. So I just keep going and going until the water is pretty much gone. And the thing is that because these are two color paints, sometimes it gets to the point where inside the water, the paints start to separate. And then you wind up getting two colors on your paper. These are quite thick, so I'm going to let them soak for just a little bit before I take them out. And I personally would not dry them in my oven. You don't want the paint fumes in your house and everything. I don't think that would be good to get it in your oven. See, I'm just improvising since I didn't bring paper towel. But you can set them out in the sun to dry. You can just set them, you know, hang them up on paper clips and have something underneath that it can drip on. And you'll get just all sorts of really cool things. So I am going to stop this right here. I'll come back and I'll show you how these papers dried and tell you what we need for next week in just a second. Okay, I am back and I put these papers out in the yard and just let them dry. And I just kind of wanted to show you like I don't know how well this is showing up, but it gets this really like mottled look on it. Speckled look, and I just love the way that looks, and this happens quite often when I do that type of dyeing. So, and then this one turned out like this, and this was sitting on top, so we've got the little bit of lines here. So, and then the heavier papers that I let sit longer were more solidly dyed, but it does show where they sat on top of each other. When I separated them, this one looked like this, and this one looked like this. So, but they turn out really cool, and I just dried these out in the yard. I do still have my pan full of water, and I will be taking that out and dyeing as much paper as I can and just drying it outside. So, and then this is the one that we did first, and normally I do a lot more of these before the color gets so mixed that you just kind of do the more solid ones like that. And I kind of now I regret that I didn't, because this one I just love the way that this one turned out. So, but that's what you can do after you have to wash your sponge out. And here are our rollers and the papers that we made. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. For next week, we are going to need to pick up, if you don't have any, We are going to need to pick up this the clear packing tape, and you want it to be as clear as possible. And then we are going to pick up a brand new black Sharpie because we want the nice point. This Sharpie still works well, but it doesn't have a very good point on it, and we do want to have a nice point. So for next week, we're going to spend $2. We're going to buy clear packing tape, and we're going to buy a Sharpie. We're going to need some images from books or magazines, and so that's what we will be needing for next week. Thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. I hope that you try this and have fun with it because it really is a blast. And don't forget, make yourself some dyed papers when you're done. So thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.